of the questions that is running around right now are questions about this defunding the police. You've testified both before judiciary committees in Congress that defunding the police is not the answer to solving the social and economic problems in this country. In fact, the Houston City Council just voted to increase the police budget by nearly $20 million. Why do you believe cutting funding is the wrong move?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a false equivalence, right? We have to choose one or the other. There's an abolitionist movement in our country, which for them, it means get rid of the police. There's a movement that says we need to take away some of the responsibilities of the police and give them to other entities. We don't disagree with that. But a colleague of mine yesterday in a conference call nailed it on the head. He said, look, it's kind of like if you're going to build a new sports stadium, you don't tear down the old sports stadium and stop using it until the new one's new. So we have to be very thoughtful, because I know in my community, which is disproportionately 1.2 million calls per year for service, are communities of color that are being victimized by violent crime. And I've got news for folks. Those communities of color deserve both public safety, public safety and security, and the socioeconomic, educational, mental health, public health, and employment opportunities as other communities. So I don't think that they don't want less police, they want better policing, and they want the same opportunities other communities have. And so if you go talk to people in Houston, they're going to say, no, absolutely not. We don't want less policing, we want better policing. And why should I have to give up my security to get the other opportunities that other communities have? And so we're going to fight for both. I think that COVID showed that the Congress can print trillions of dollars. When COVID impacted the whole nation, they can make those kind of investments in poor communities and in communities of color, including poor communities that happen to be white folks as well. So there's a lot that could be done, and we shouldn't give people false choices that just aren't based in fact.
So, you know, we're looking at all of these incidents that are happening around the country. And, of course, there is now outrage over the hanging deaths of two young black men found days apart in California after one was initially ruled a suicide this week. A Hispanic man and a black teen were found hanging in Texas. Now, Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee is calling for a thorough investigation. Since one is in your jurisdiction, what are your thoughts? Is it a good idea to really have everybody calm down so we can figure out what these actually are?
Yeah, I think it's. I always tell people, look, we all think you can take a deep breath, but I'll be real honest with you, Whoopi. When I heard about the one we had in our city. You have to realize the history of our country and lynchings, and I'm glad that lynching is finally going to become a federal crime, and it appears that there's a lot of momentum. When somebody's found hanging from a tree, especially a person of color, we can't just willy-nilly rule it as a suicide. We've got to approach it like it's a homicide, start at that level until we cross our T's, dot our I's, leave no stone unturned to ensure it was, in fact, a suicide. So the one that you're talking about in our city was spinning out of control right away. We actually reached out to the family. The individual sadly had suicidal thoughts. But I told my team, I want to go back, ensure that we've looked at all video cameras from ring phones, public safety cameras, everything, to ensure it really was a suicide. So we owe it to our community and to the deceased families to treat it as a homicide, to make sure that we don't have a murder that's being covered as a homicide. I mean, as a suicide, excuse me.